More than 600 lives were lost in the increasingly intense conflict between humans and elephants in India during 2023. Emerging from the forest, elephant herds standing over 3 meters tall and weighing more than 5 tons stormed through rice fields, destroying an entire season's harvest within minutes. When trapped between houses and panicked crowds, a single sudden charge can turn an attempt to drive them away into a tragedy. India has built multiple layers of protection and adopted technology to detect elephants early and guide them away from residential areas. Yet as forests continue to shrink and migration routes are divided, every control measure can still collapse overnight. Why has an animal, worshipped as a sacred symbol, become a source of fear for thousands of villages? Join Mandarin Tech as we uncover this story. Elephants are not newcomers to India. Around 4,000 years ago, people of the Indus Valley civilization had already learned to domesticate them. Over time, elephants became part of warfare, ceremonies, and religious beliefs, turning them into a symbol deeply connected to the country's history. Today, India remains the world's largest stronghold of wild Asian elephants, holding more than 60% of the global population. Yet strict protection has not been enough to preserve continuous forest habitats. Over the past 2 decades, India's national highway network expanded to 146,145 kilometers by 2024, while construction reached nearly 34 kilometers per day at certain points. Roads, factories, and residential areas have pushed deeper into forests, breaking habitats into smaller fragments and cutting across routes used by elephant herds for generations. India has identified 150 elephant corridors, but 15 of them have deteriorated. When these ancient routes are blocked by concrete, fences, and construction projects, the herds still have to continue their journey. Rice fields and villages become the only paths left. Encounters usually increase from September to December, when rice and many other crops enter the harvest season. Attracted by the abundance of food, elephant herds leave the forest and move into fields located near their migration corridors. The damage goes far beyond the crops they consume. Weighing several tons, elephants trample plants, break field boundaries, and damage irrigation channels as they move through the farmland. In just a few hours, they can wipe out the results of months of hard work. According to some estimates, a single elephant herd can damage nearly 5 hectares of farmland, equivalent to around 6 tons of food and the income of almost 30 farming families. For households that depend entirely on one harvest, a single night like this can lead to food shortages and long-term debt. When there is no longer enough food in the fields, the elephants continue toward nearby villages. Houses made of mud, wood, or corrugated metal offer little resistance to their strength. Walls and roofs may be torn apart as the animals search for stored rice, corn, and other food inside. The situation becomes most dangerous when villagers gather to drive them away with fire, bright lights, and loud noises. Trapped between houses and crowds, the elephants may panic, change direction, and charge back toward the people. Each year, this conflict claims more than 500 human lives and over 100 elephants. Faced with such serious losses, why does India still not control elephants in the same way the United States deals with wild boars? Instead of killing elephants, India builds barriers to separate forests from villages and farmland. Among them, elephant-proof trenches are one of the oldest and most direct measures. These trenches are usually about 3 meters wide and 2 meters deep, while the bottom is only around 1 meter wide. The excavated soil is then piled up on the forest side, creating a raised bank and increasing the distance the elephants must cross. With bodies weighing several tons, elephants find it difficult to step down into a deep trench and then climb the steep slope on the other side. In Bandipur Tiger Reserve, more than 240 kilometers of trenches were once built, using this design to stop elephant herds from entering residential areas. Over time, however, some elephants learn to locate lower sections, collapse the trench walls by stepping on them, or follow weak points where crossing was easier. As a result, many sections were deepened to 3 meters and widened to 2 meters at the bottom to improve their effectiveness. The greatest challenge comes during the rainy season. Water flowing along the trenches can carry soil into the bottom, cause the sides to collapse, and gradually create gentle slopes that elephants can easily cross. To reduce this problem, the trenches are divided into separate sections by thin earth walls placed 10 to 20 meters apart, preventing water from flowing along the entire trench line. When earth trenches are no longer effective against heavy rain and difficult terrain, India turns to solar-powered electric fences, a flexible line of defense that can operate even in remote areas beyond the power grid. The moment an elephant touches the wire, the fence releases a very short electric pulse, strong enough to trigger a reaction that makes the animal stop and move away from the boundary. The current is delivered in intermittent pulses rather than flowing continuously like household electricity, reducing the risk of serious injury to elephants and to people who may accidentally come into contact with it. In Kaziranga, fence posts are usually placed 8 to 10 meters apart. Depending on the level of conflict, the wires may be arranged in 1 or 2 levels, with operating voltages ranging from 7,000 to 10,000 volts. Although this figure sounds extremely high, the energy in each pulse is tightly controlled and lasts for only a very short time. In some areas, the system is switched off during the day so that local people can travel, work in the fields, and save energy. Along the buffer zone of Kaziranga National Park, 9 community-managed systems have created a 46-kilometer protective line. According to local residents, the number of times elephants approached villages fell from around 25 to just 3 times per month. However, the fences must be installed along natural migration routes because a poorly placed barrier could split elephant herds or push them toward a neighboring village. But in some fields, the most effective line of defense begins with the buzzing of honeybees. Beehives are hung along the edges of farmland and connected to one another by steel wires. When an elephant touches the wire, several hives shake at the same time, causing the bees to fly out and defend their nests. Although elephants have thick skin, they are especially sensitive around the eyes, behind the ears, and inside the trunk. Simply hearing the sound of active bees is often enough to make many elephants slow down, change direction, or return to the forest. In Mailumpara, Kerala, researchers once placed 20 beehives along 6 routes commonly used by elephants to enter farmland. Each route was blocked by 3 to 5 hives connected across a wire about 10 meters long. During the trial from March to December 2014, elephants approached the system 14 times, but managed to cross the fence and enter the fields on only 2 occasions. The beehives also produced around 15 kilograms of honey during the trial. Although the amount was not large, it gave local people an additional product to use or sell while still protecting their crops. Long-term studies in Kenya also found that fences with active bee colonies stopped elephants in about 76% of approaches, rising to more than 86% during favorable growing seasons. However, their effectiveness dropped significantly when the hives were empty, drought caused the bees to leave, or the system was not regularly inspected and maintained. When beehive fences are difficult to maintain across large areas, another defense can be planted in the ground. Instead of growing rice, corn, sugarcane, or bananas along the forest edge, some communities create buffer zones with chili, ginger, onions, garlic, and citrus trees, crops that attract fewer elephants. Chili is often used where a solution is needed. Farmers stretch ropes around fields and hang pieces of cloth soaked in chili oil. Capsaicin produces a spicy smell that can make elephant herds slow down and change direction. In a 2010 trial in Buxa, Wayanad, and Hosur, fields with perimeters of 1.4 to 5.5 kilometers were protected with ropes treated with chili, tobacco, and waste oil for 44 to 72 days before harvest. The method stopped most herds led by females, but was less effective against adult males traveling alone. Rain and fog also weakened the smell, forcing farmers to reapply the mixture. More durable than this scent-based barrier are dense living hedges planted along field boundaries. In Sri Lanka, the hana plant is used as a natural defense because it can grow into bushes over 2 meters high. Its long, stiff leaves and sharp tips interlock to form a thick wall that elephants struggle to push through. Hana also lasts longer and can repair itself as it grows. In Pudalam district, the method was proposed for about 500 villages, where nearly 200,000 coconut trees had been destroyed by elephants within a decade. Once an elephant herd has entered the middle of a village, any attempt to drive it away becomes dangerous. For this reason, India is shifting its focus from reacting at the scene to detecting elephants early, giving residents more time to move out of their path before a conflict occurs. In conflict hotspots, standard cameras, thermal cameras, and motion sensors are installed along forest edges and routes frequently used by elephants. Thermal cameras can detect the body heat of animals in darkness and poor visibility. The Wildlife Institute of India has also developed and deployed warning platforms that combine drone surveillance with information from patrol teams. When elephants approach residential areas, alerts can be sent to forest officers and local residents through text messages, phone calls, mobile applications, sirens, or public loudspeakers. After conflict hotspots were mapped and 12 early warning systems were deployed, elephant-related crop damage in the project area fell by more than 72%. Similar technology is also being developed for railways. Sensor systems use fiber optic cables laid along railway tracks to detect vibrations caused by elephant footsteps. Combined with patrols, speed limits, and thermal cameras, the number of elephants killed in train collisions in India fell from 26 in 2013 to 12 in 2024. However, this decline reflects the combined effect of all these measures, rather than the impact of a single warning system. But fields trampled flat, harvests disappearing overnight, and residents being forced to build fences to protect their property are not scenes found only in Indian villages affected by elephants. In the United States, another animal is causing a similar crisis: feral hogs. In a short time, a level pasture can be turned into ground filled with deep holes, making it difficult for agricultural machinery to operate. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that damage and control costs caused by feral hogs in the agricultural sector alone reach about $2.5 billion each year. As fields continue to be damaged, hunting feral hogs is no longer simply a weekend activity for sport hunting enthusiasts. In many states, including Texas, it has gradually become part of wildlife control strategies. Although hunting is allowed throughout the year in many areas, every hunt must still follow strict rules on safety, shooting zones, and the use of weapons. Licensed hunters often move along the edges of fields while the hogs are feeding, using low ground and tall crops to approach without attracting attention. In a single short hunt, an experienced group may remove 10 to 20 animals, temporarily reducing pressure on nearby farmland. However, the effect rarely lasts. Feral hogs quickly move to other areas, adapt to human presence, and return after only a short time. They are also appearing increasingly close to residential areas. Local residents say that even while cycling through farming regions, suddenly encountering a group of feral hogs running across the road is no longer unusual. So why does India not organize elephant hunts in the same way the United States kills feral hogs? The first difference lies in the origins of the two species. Feral hogs in the United States are invasive animals that reproduce rapidly and are controlled to protect agriculture and native ecosystems. Elephants, by contrast, have lived on the Indian subcontinent for thousands of years and act as engineers of the forest. As they move, they spread seeds, carry nutrients over long distances, open gaps in vegetation, and create paths used by many smaller species. Removing elephants on a large scale could change the entire structure of the forest. Elephants also cannot recover their numbers as quickly as feral hogs. An elephant's pregnancy lasts 22 months, while the interval between births is usually 3 to 8 years. A female elephant normally gives birth to only one calf at a time. A hunting campaign lasting several years could cause the population to decline rapidly, while recovery might take decades. Furthermore, elephants are strictly protected under India's Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, which prohibits the hunting of animals listed under its protected schedules. Under Section 11, only the chief wildlife warden may issue a written order concerning an individual elephant that has become dangerous to human life, is seriously injured, or suffers from an incurable disease. Even in such exceptional cases, the elephant cannot be killed immediately. Authorities must first determine that it cannot be captured, tranquilized, or relocated. India's Ministry of Environment requires every case involving the capture and relocation of an elephant to be considered separately, rather than turning the process into a large-scale removal campaign. In India, every step taken by an elephant lies on the fragile boundary between conservation and survival. Behind them are forests that are becoming increasingly fragmented. Ahead are fields, villages, and millions of people trying to protect their way of life. As living space continues to shrink, who will ultimately be forced to give way? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Mandarin Tech to continue exploring the struggles for survival unfolding around the world.